Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of Feedback Freitag, or unfortunately another edition of Feedback Montag. Apologies for getting this out on Monday instead of Friday. I was sick last week, or at least for part of the week, so things got shuffled back. And in any case, everything's up to speed in terms of your grading now. All the analyzers are graded, the time controllers are graded. Sarah's working with the blade side controllers right now, so you'll be all ready to go for the on-rise that's due on Tuesday. So anyways, I think it's worthwhile to nonetheless share some thoughts on what we observed last week in terms of your German course. So a couple of things to look at for last week. Excuse me. So the first is something that was certainly talked about earlier on in the course, but I think it bears bringing up again because it is something that you'll encounter again and again and again. And looking at one of the questions on the tongue controller, I don't think it's exactly clear yet. And it's that distinction between do and sie, and when do we use both of them. So primarily, I guess the easiest way to think about it is that you can normally default to using sie. If you're presented with a scenario and we ask you to say something to someone, you can probably default to using sie because sie is more commonly used for people that you just don't know, right? So if we think about when we would use sie with someone, typically it's for someone who has authority. It's for someone who you just have not met yet. So you wouldn't start by saying, hey, do, because that implies a certain sense of familiarity. So we have to revert back to sie in those instances when it's someone we've never met before. If you're talking with colleagues, often that office environment tends to have a sie usage there. Not always the case though. Excuse me. And this is something I'm including a link to an article in the PowerPoint slides associated with this feedback Freitag that kind of talks a little bit about the change in dynamics in Germany, about the use of sie and do, because as the world changes, right, people start to think, oh, like why are we using sie with colleagues in an office environment when we've known them for so long? Does it make sense to be so formal with them? So there's some shifting dynamics there, but you know, when we're talking about, okay, what do you write in a German quiz, you're going to use sie there as well. And also if you're asking someone for help or assisting a customer or whatnot. And again, that's where it goes back to the question on the tongue controller, which is where you're asking, well, do they sell beer here? Talking to someone who works at a grocery store. There's no sense of familiarity between you and a random employee. Certainly you don't have authority over the employee because they work at a grocery store. So in those cases, you would just simply ask, yeah, verkaufen Sie Bier? Do you sell beer? And you're using the verkaufen Sie because of that sense of relationship or lack thereof between you and the customer or the employee there. All right. So do, on the other hand, then is used in a fewer situations, right? So A, if you're talking to a child, just because you are older than them, and it really is a child, right? It's not just because you're older than someone that you use do. It's specifically for children. You wouldn't, if you're 22, talk to someone who's 21 and use do with them first on, right? You have to, it's got to be a child. Other cases, if you're talking to a close friend, of course, use do, or family, so use do there as well. But again, you can see in contrast the limited number of uses of do versus sie. So again, err on the side of caution if need be with sie, but more than anything, when we spend the time in a quiz question to explain the context around the interaction, that's often a clue to say, okay, well, slow down. What do I have to use here? What form of the you do I use? Okay. That's the first one. The second one was one that came up time and time again on the analyzer, and that was the use of für when talking about how long do I do something for, right? A common one was you're talking about how long you eat breakfast for. So ich frühstücke für 10 Minuten, right? Translated to an English sentence, I eat breakfast for 10 minutes. Makes absolute sense, right? The thing with German though is that when we use the verb ich frühstücke, what follows that adverbial time phrase already assumes that we're talking about, well, I'm eating breakfast for 10 minutes. By just sticking that time phrase after the verb, it already kind of uses that for element that we need in English with the preposition, and it just avoids that completely. So, and that's going to happen with any instance of saying, well, how long am I doing something for? Ich frühstücke 10 Minuten. Ich studiere 2 Stunden. I'm studying for 2 hours. Right? It doesn't matter what that is, but primarily avoid the use of für just because it sounds like that's what we would do in English. There's many instances of that in German where you think something should be a certain way because that's how it is in English. And we have to kind of train ourselves to realize, excuse me, that the system is not the case. And fear in that construction is one of those things. So just avoid it, don't use it. Just say what you're doing, stick the time at the end of it, and you're good to go. Okay? So that is it for this week. All the best with the Anreise on Tuesday, and we'll talk to you again on Friday. Okay? Tschüss.